Today you see a polo style, can be a shirt, can be a dress. I love the bust studs here, that's something really cool, and of course the finish here, superb. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I have some neat sewing to share with you today, although it's a little bit blended with woven sewing just because of the techniques and because I've been sneaky and I've sort of weaseled a bit of woven into there, with the permission of the designer, of course. And who am I talking about here? This is Kenneth. She owns and designs at Itch to Stitch. So obviously this is an Itch to Stitch pattern, and this is a polo shirt or dress. It's called Aiken. It's a classic style with a little detail, a shirt or a dress. The only difference here is the length. Basically, the shirt is supposed to be at the high to mid hip, depends on your height. Little slits on the side, the same detail is on the dress. The dress depends on what your height is, could be mid knee, above the knee, that sort of thing. There's great shaping here. If you're doing the regular bust option, you won't have a bust start right here, but if you're doing the full bust option, there will be a bust start, and I think that is worth gold. At least for knit sewing, I appreciate a dart any day. I have even added darts to knit tops that don't have darts, so if I see it there, I know the experience of fitting is going to be awesome. You put it on over your head. Obviously there is a placket right here, there's two pieces, overlaps right here. You have that little rectangle feature that plackets have, and you have a collar. The collar itself is easier to sew because it's just one piece, and on the inside you have a beautiful finish with binding. The little detail that takes it out of the classic more onto the delicate feminine look is a little ruffle that you can put in between the placket that is on your left side. So the construction is a little bit different on that side, and you have a little ruffle right there. That's optional, of course. You can just keep it classic. That's what I'm doing. You can do sleeveless. If you want sleeveless, you have a band that goes along there. You have short sleeves. The short sleeves also have a hemband, or you can do a regular long sleeve. Because the Aiken is brand new at Itch to Stitch, it's going to be 20% off through next Tuesday, the 21st of July. It's always great to grab it with a discount. You can head over to the top of the comment section. I pin my affiliate link there if you want to use it. Clicking on my affiliate link just means I receive a small commission. It doesn't mean you pay anything extra to use it. And if you find this content super helpful, it's one way that you can support the work I do here on YouTube, where I create lots of helpful information for you that you can enjoy without any cost. So I appreciate it if you use my affiliate link. Thank you so much. You need light to medium weight knit fabric for this design. 50% stretch horizontally from selvage to selvage. You need some stretch vertically. I'd say at least 10 to 15% to be comfortable in the armhole and sleeve area. It's not a super fitted design, so it doesn't have to be that stretchy vertically, but I don't want to use fabric that doesn't have any stretch vertically. It might affect the fit. Good fabrics could be, a good fabric would be cotton lycra, of course. You know, it's semi-structured fabric and perfect for this style. Double brush poly, athletic knits, rib knits. If you want a winter version, a sweater knit, but I wouldn't be doing the placket and the collar with a sweater knit though. I would combine that. I would use rayon French terry. I think that's awesome. And Ponte Roma, I would, just because I have found some Ponte Romas that are not that heavy and not that stiff. So not all Ponte Romas are made alike. There's different compositions and weights and everything. So I put that one as an asterisk because you would really have to evaluate the knit to see if it's okay. Why am I saying it's okay? Because this design doesn't need drape and things like that. If you're doing the regular placket and collar, you could use something a little structured like that. Now, I'm going to say I wouldn't use an ITY. I think it's too light to hold the weight of the placket and the collar. I wouldn't want to sew the placket and the collar with that type of fabric. Another type that I would not be keen to use is any of the really stretchy, clingy ones like rayon spandex, bamboo spandex, modal spandex. Just to hold the weight of the collar and the placket, I think it could look sloppy and floppy, and it would be harder for you to achieve a neat result with those knits, even if you interface that area. So I wouldn't do it. I'm not saying you can't do it. If you want to go ahead and try it out, I'm just stating my opinion here. If you do want to do the little ruffle detail here, which is one of the features of this pattern, I would keep my knit super light. I would use an athletic knit maybe. I wouldn't want to go heavy Ponte Roma cotton spandex to do the ruffle. I think it could turn out super bulky with the layers of the placket. That's just what I think. Where am I going rogue? And I did ask Kenneth for permission before sewing my version. I don't really see why you couldn't use a woven for the placket and the collar. You know, these are areas that stretch around the knit. You're actually stabilizing with interfacing to suppress the knit of the plackets and the collar and all of this area. So why not use a woven? And Kenneth said that was okay. So I'm using a combination of the knit for the main pieces, and I'm using linen for the placket and collar. I think it's awesome. You need some stay tape to stabilize shoulders. You need fusible interfacing for the placket and collar areas. You need to make yourself a piece of a bias strip, 1 inch by about 20 inches long. I would suggest this be a very lightweight cotton lawn or something very lightweight because it can add to the bulk on the inside here. Sizing goes from 00 to 40 US. That goes up to a 62-inch hip. You have a regular bust and a full bust option. Each to stitch has a cutoff of 3 inches between your high bust and your full bust. So whatever that difference is, if it's 3, you can choose either or options. Mine is like that. I'm a 3. I could get away with not having the dart, but I like the dart. I have a bust protrusion. I think it gives me a smoother fit here on the side. So if I can choose the bust dart, in any case, I will choose it. And so that is my option right there. The ease around the bust is semi-fitted, 1 inch of positive ease. Considering it's a knit, it's going to feel like there's a bit more ease than that because your fabric stretches. Plenty of space around the waist, about 7 inches, and around the mid hip where this is going to land. It's going to be about 2.5 inches of ease. But remember, it's a little bit more because you have those slits there. So it's not like it's going to be fitted around that section. What am I doing for my personal fitting? Very easy things. First thing is to take my current measurements. Certain physical activities that I'm enjoying right now that are causing some composition changes in my body. So I'm not just remembering what my bust and whatnot measured last week. I'm actually taking measurements pretty frequently. So plot those down there. I already know I want the full bust option. I'm going with a size 8 US for my bust with the full bust option, blending to a size 10 at the waist, blending to a size 12 at the hips. So that's just blending between lines there. I measured, and that bust dart, of course, is high. It always is. Most patterns it is. So I just went ahead and dropped it to what I need, which is 1 inch. Very easy adjustment. I'll leave you a link to a video where I show that in detail. It's a pretty old video from 2019, but the content is still valid. Everything that you see there is what I do. Now, another thing I did, there are little marks on the side that give you a reference to where the waist is, and you can clearly see it with the shape of the garment. I wanted to make sure that wasn't too high. It did look high just by eyeballing. And yeah, I had to do a shorten and lengthen line right above that and add some length to bring that bodice or waist height down a little bit. 1.25 inches, and then I'm happy. Then the notches are actually at my waist. So I wanted to do a length adjustment anyway because I knew the finished length of the shirt was a little bit short for me and my height. I'm 5'8" for reference. So it just depends where you add that length. I could have added it below the waist, but then it wouldn't make sense for my shape. So you can add length to where you need it. And I have a really comprehensive video that discusses vertical proportions in great detail. If that's something that you want to finesse in your sewing, this is how the thumbnail looks. It is an episode with a lot of views and a lot of positive feedback. It's made a difference to a lot of people. So have a look at that. That's how I figured out I need to add length above my waist so that that area ends up a little longer. So after doing all that on the pattern, I didn't need to make a test garment, nothing like that. I'm very confident that this was going to be all that I needed. I'm going to focus on preparing the center area of this placket, where it's going to go, how I interface. I do that modified block fusing. It's a little bit different. And then I'm going to show you in detail how to sew the placket and the collar. I preface here that at the very end, you can machine sew your placket. You can do that. I'm just going to be hand sewing mine at the end. That's something that I want to do. I know 99% of people won't want to do that, but I wanted to do it. But in this case, I wanted to keep my placket without any top stitching. I wanted it to look super clean, so that's what I did. But don't be put off by that. I'm just giving you a warning here. If you absolutely despise the hand sewing, you will see like a couple of seconds of that at the end. But that's just something I wanted to do. This is a piece of fabric as large as I need it to be. I have basted with red right there, right where the fold of this is going to be. I actually put this fabric on the fold first, placed my pattern piece so I would have the reference. And I have a little dot there and a little dot there. That is the area that I want to interface. So basically this is my pattern piece. This is the rectangle that needs to be interfaced. So that is what I've got right there. Interfacing is meant to go over that bottom bit area by 1/2 inch, so a little bit extra. That's where I have my yellow dot, and then my yellow dot on the top goes right here. So basically this is the area that I want to interface where the red thread is. I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut it. It's always going to be the same process for me. The only thing that changes with each different pattern is how long this is and how wide this is. You always have specific instructions about that. I have the length that I need here to go along the center, and then the width right here. This is 4.5 centimeters, which is 1 3/4 inches right here. That's the little piece I need. The cutting mat underneath in centimeters is really helpful for me. So this is what I'm going to fuse onto the center front. This type of interfacing is very lightweight, and it's always the type that stretches absolutely nothing. This placket is going to go onto a knit garment that stretches a lot. So by fusing that onto the center, we're essentially removing the stretch from that area of the knit. So when we sew it, it's going to be non-stretch. It's going to behave like you're sewing wovens. So there is my mark. This is my piece of interfacing. I'm going to center it on top of the red right here and fuse it on. Then this is going to be stable. The stretch is suppressed. Then I can put this on the fold and cut out my front piece afterwards. Here we have it at the iron. I'm going to center this right there. I wish I could draw on this interfacing. It's so light that if I put a pen through it, I would start breaking it down. So that's why I don't have a line there. Also, this interfacing is a little bit sheer, so I can see the red thread. So let's just throw the iron on it right here and get this fused on. This area, 0 stretch now. Now I can put this right here on the fold. I have my red marks as a reference to put exactly on the fold, and then I'm going to put my pattern piece right there. There we have it, already interfaced, and now I can go ahead and put my pattern piece on top. I know that my interface has to go past that rectangle mark by 1/2 inch, so I'm going to place it right there. So right now I'm ready to trim everything. This is modified block fusing. I don't want the center of this garment to pull or shrink, which would happen if I fuse this little thing after cutting out my front piece. I know that happens because I have done that in the past, and it just ruins the whole look of the placket because it starts pulling. I don't want that to happen. I want this to look as best as it can. So doing it like this, I know it's a little bit of extra work, but not that much. You're still going to fuse it on. Might as well do it before cutting out the pattern piece. This is the collar piece. It's a different collar than others that you're accustomed to because it doesn't have the top seam right here. It's just going to be a fold. This curved section here is what actually is going to go on the neckline right there and right there. So it's a little bit easier than the typical collars that have 2 pieces. So that's nice. This is the placket pieces. I'm cutting 2 of the same because I'm doing the simple placket. I'm not doing the one with the ruffle. If you're doing the one with the ruffle, you just cut 1 out of these and then you cut 2 of these smaller ones. But that's not the option I'm going for. I'm keeping mine really, really simple. Also, my fabric is quite bulky for ruffles. I think it would just be too many layers for me. So even though I like it, I'm just going to keep the placket as a simple placket. This collar was meant to be cut on the fold, but I just extended it. I put extra paper and just made an extended piece. This is already interfaced here. Same as that, I have 2 layers right here. And now I'm just going to trim. Any shrinkage that would have happened with the interfacing would have already happened. That means that my pieces turn out exactly like the pattern pieces. That means it's going to fit the neckline and nothing is not going to fit right here. Okay, for the placket, I'm using linen. Even though this is a knit garment, you can use a woven for the placket and the collar. That is an option. I could have used a knit as well. If I'd used a knit, I still would have used this interfacing to suppress all the stretch. I think the linen placket is going to look super nice on the rib knit. Here are the pieces for my version of the Aiken Polo Shirt. This is a knit, it's a rib knit. This is the front. This center area is the one that I interfaced. I did that before cutting out the piece. This one is cut on the fold. I'm doing the full bust option, so I do have a little bust out right here. The back is on the fold. This
goes out wider into that shape because it's going to have slits. There's a little dot to mark that. I have a short sleeve option. The short sleeve has a little band, a hemband. Placket, 2 of them, interfaced, and the collar is one piece and it's also interfaced. I'm using linen for mine. They are the same blue. It's going to look cool. And I know for a fact that I would not enjoy sewing the placket and the collar with a rib knit just because of the texture and how uneven it could be. So this is another alternative and something totally possible. This is the back. Before I start sewing, I'm just going to fuse the stay tape along the shoulder areas. I will have a sleeve here, and this is rib knit, which is notorious for stretching out. This is in the pattern. This is something I would do if it was in the pattern or not. So this will keep the shoulders nice and stable. I'll just repeat that on this other side. I've done some steps that are easy to do now and then forget about. One of them was to serge all the edges. I'm going to be sewing the seams with my sewing machine and pressing them open. I prefer to do that with this rib knit. It's not the lightest of knits, so that's just something I prefer to do. The front, before I serge the sides, I had to sew my bust studs, so those are done. If you're not doing the full bust option, then you can ignore that because you won't have bust studs. They were sewn in the same way I sew all the bust studs. So now I basically don't need the serger anymore and I can just focus on doing the placket and the collar and all of that. Another fun little thing I've done was assemble my short sleeves. So I've sewn the seam, I've sewn the hemband at the bottom of the sleeves. I have 2 little short sleeves ready to go for the end. These are the 2 placket pieces. You can see that on one side there's no marks on the top, but on the other side there are 2 dots. This is the bottom of the placket. This is the top of the placket. Easy step to do ahead of time is to just press this in half, wrong sides together. There is a mark on the pattern, a little dash line, but you don't need to mark that because it was just the half. So it's marked with the crease, that's done, ready to go. Now just looking at it like this, we're going to choose the inner edges right here mirrored, and we're going to stay stitch from the top right up to that dot right here. 2 straight seams and stopping exactly on that little dot there. On the other side, just because it's mirrored, I'm going to start on the dot. Okay, there we have the stay stitching on these inner edges. Now on these outer edges, we need to press in the 3/8 seam allowance right here, both sides. There we have it, magically pressed. I made sure to measure this so that it's very, very accurate. Let's put it aside for a second. Now here is the placket area from the wrong side. I actually drew the lines here with a red friction pen so that I know exactly where I'm going to stay stitch now. I can't do it from this side because I can't see it obviously. I didn't want to mark it here because it's harder to see. It's so much easier to see on the white interfacing. This is how it looks like from the right side. I can see the stay stitching with my eyes. You probably can't because I did it in a matching color right there. You're supposed to lay these right sides up and then grab your plackets. Remember the ones that have the dots? That's the bottom of the placket. So this is going to go right on top of that same stay stitching we did now. And we need to match up the dot here at the bottom. So this will go right there. And then this other one is going to go right there. Now, if you anticipate the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to hand baste this down. And I'm going to do it from this side because from here I can see my stay stitching. So while I'm hand basting, I'm going to put my needle through right on top of the stay stitching and coming right on top of this one. And I'm going to baste this down so that both stay stitching lines, both from the placket and this one, are right exactly on top of each other. And I think that's going to give me much more peace than just hoping for the best and just pinning it. Okay, there we have it hand basted. I used green. It's close enough to the color, but I'll still be able to see it and take that off because I literally have to sew right on top of this seam now with an actual stitch. So a lot of the basting threads might get caught in there. I'm fine with that. I can still remove them afterwards. So it's basically from here and precisely to the dot and reinforcing. 2 little seams. Okay, I've taken my time and I've removed the basting stitches. It took a while, but they are no longer here. So what I'm going to do is cut the seam allowance in half of this interfaced placket. I'm not touching this layer on the bottom yet. I'm doing it with a neckline here. So I've just got better access right here. And I'm going to cut this in half. When you look at the plackets from this side, this is your right hand, this is your left hand. So the placket that's on your right hand is actually the left side of the placket when you wear it. So this is actually going to end up on the left part of you. I'm going to write a left with the regular pen. No one's ever going to see this. So looking down, you have your right hand, but it's actually the left wearer side. This is the placket that we just need to press this way. Just give it a crease so that this seam sets nicely. Okay, left placket pressed over this way, nice and creased, nicely done. I'm just going to open that up again so I can have good access to this area, and from the wrong side we can see this much better. I have my little line from the beginning and I'm going to cut through it, but I'm going to stop 1/2 inch before this rectangle at the bottom. I'm going to draw a dot right here, and then from there I'm going to cut into the corners like that, diagonally. And then cut diagonally, just this single layer. This huge chunk of seam allowance, we're also going to cut it down right here. I'm just cutting through one layer right here because on the other side we had already trimmed it. Now we're looking at it from the right side, and we're just going to close this placket here. This is the right wearer side. This is what's going to overlap over this side. So we can do all of this now because we've cut into this corner. So this one's going to be stacked over this side. I'm just going to fiddle with this and tidy it all up. Once I've pressed it and tidied it, I'm just going to pop a few pins, like a third down, just to keep it in place. We're still not done though. We still can't close it because we need to keep going, putting this together, and we'll finish it at a later stage. But for now, this is what we do. I went to the iron. I also pressed this seam exactly the same way I'd pressed this other seam. I tidied this up. I put a few pins. It's looking really nice. But we can't keep going yet. We need to do shoulder seams because we need to do the collar as well. So this is the front, this is the back right here. The back is stabilized, so I'm just going to pin them together and I'm going to sew these shoulder seams on the sewing machine. I'm going to press the seam open. I have the stable shoulder on the top. This is the one that's not going to stretch against my presser foot, and the front shoulder that's at the bottom that can be sorted out with the feed dogs. This is an area that doesn't need to stretch. It's not going to stretch. The stay tape suppress the stretch, so I'm just using a straight stitch. Here's our collar piece. We're just going to fold it right sides together lengthwise like that and sew these two little seams. 3/8 seam allowance. After sewing those, we're going to flip them. We're going to flip these little seams and press the collar nice and neat. Here it is, nice and neat. I'm going to work with it as it is. We're not going to be separating these seams. They're going to be sewn onto the neckline together. I've already pressed the shoulder seams here. I'm going to start pinning from the center back. I have a dot on my center back and a dot on my center back of the collar. Then on the collar, we have other marks here for the shoulders. Because they're on the inside, I'm going to poke pins where the references are and then pin right here. Matches 1 to 1. And on this other side should be the same. As we head to the center front, we're going to open this placket. That's why we couldn't finish it beforehand. This needs to be free. And right there, I marked the middle of the placket. This is on the pattern piece. It's just a little line. And that's as far as the collar is going to reach. So right there, as you can see. So I'm going to put a pin right there. Once we have that in place, we still have that fold from the beginning. I'm going to put a pin right on that fold just so it's easier. Right there. And then I'm going to bring this top of the placket over like this. Right there and pin it right here. This is how we're going to sew it all around like that. I'm going to repeat the same step on this other side of the placket. This is a little bias cut strip that's 1 inch right here. I cut it from one of my husband's shirts, old shirts, very thin. It's not going to be bulky and I think it's cute. Matches my shirt. I've cut that 1 inch strip and pressed one of the long ends in by 1/4 inch. The other edge is normal. I've put a pin in the center right there I'm just going to put that right here. I just finished pinning on the collar. These edges of the placket are folded back. The collar is actually in there. Using the same pins, I'm going to start pinning the bias tape on top with that little fold facing up, looking up at you. When we sew this, we're going to sew them all at the same time. And then this is what's going to cover the seam afterwards. So I'm just going to pin that all the way around here and trim any excess I might have. When I get to this part, I don't need the bias tape to go all the way there. It can stop a little bit before there. Okay, there we have it, the binding on top. I've removed the pins and done some hand basting to keep all the layers together. I really don't want to have these pins lying around here while I sew all of this. It's all curved, there's many layers. So the hand basting is really helpful. I'm sewing this with 3/8 seam allowance. I'm using a straight stitch. All of this section of the collar and the placket, just pretend it's woven. My collar and placket is woven, but it doesn't stretch. It's full of interfacing. Make sure you're touching and feeling everything with your fingers. The bottom layer with the feed dogs is the knit. Make sure it's not forming pockets or anything under there. Okay, there's the seam. I'm going to have a quick look at this other side where the rib knit is. Look, that is the thing that I was expecting not to find, and there's one tiny pucker. This is always a chance that could happen if you have a knit layer under there in a curved area. That's why I was saying be careful, and I was feeling and everything, but it was such a small pucker that I didn't really feel that it happened. So I'm just going to unpick that little bit and try again. It's just that section, it's about 3/8 of an inch. I have to sew again. And now this seam allowance is going to go pressed down, and this bias tape should cover it, but as you can see, it's not. I mean, there's just too much seam allowance here. So we're going to have to make this smaller so that we reduce bulk and that this piece of tape covers it. So I'm going to be quite generous in trimming away here. Always keep your fingers here. Don't make the mistake of just cutting without noticing what you're cutting on this other side, because you could catch your main shirt. It's never happened to me, but it would be a pretty big nightmare if it did. So make sure your fingers are protecting your shirt and you're only getting the layers that you need to trim and not any other piece of your shirt. Because we've left the seam allowance so little, there's no need to snip along that. It's not going to cause any problems. And so basically now, we just need to turn this bias tape down, cover that seam. Over here, this is already flipped on its own, but basically we flip this. The collar comes out through there. We have that little bit there. The bias tape is going to come from under there. I am upset about this white interfacing showing. I wish I had blue interfacing. But this is extremely easy to remove. If I just unpick it and unpeel it, it'll come out. So I'm going to take my time to remove as much as interfacing as I can from that area right there so that it's not visible. But ignoring that white bit, there is that seam of the placket going that way. Here is the fold, and the bias tape comes from right behind it. So if you wear this open, you would see the bias tape. I think this is quite discreet and quite nice actually. If it had been my first choice, I would have loved to find a really, really lightweight cotton in the same blue. I just don't have any of that. The linen I think was way too heavy to do this. It would have turned out too bulky. So this was my second choice. It's still nice and cute. Check it out, nice and neat, hand basted in place. I managed to take away all that interfacing that I had there. Those little dots of glue are going to come out with a wash, I'm not concerned. And right here where this has to cover that seam, I'm just going to have my rib knit there, no interfacing seam. Now in the instructions, you're meant to edge stitch this down. So basically you sew here and you catch it here. If I was going to do that, I would hand baste that and then edge stitch. What I'm going to do, and because I don't want top stitching here, I want a really, really clean look, is I'm going to slip stitch this by hand right there and on this other side as well. I know it's going to take a while longer to do, but I'm willing to do that. Now, I think you can replace hand sewing, instead of machine sewing at any point if you want. It doesn't change anything. It's my top, and if I want to dedicate more time to it, I think it's okay. So go ahead and edge stitch that, both plackets. If I was doing that, I would edge stitch and then I would go and top stitch this. So I could do it sort of in one go sort of thing. But I'm going to finish this placket by hand. I'm going to be happy with that. And then I'm going to come in here and top stitch this binding down. And then all we need to finish is this little bit right here, the bottom. Finished all my hand sewing. My placket is so neat, so clean. I love that. Now I'm going to top stitch this. I'm going to do it from here because I want to go right there on the edge. I've got the same color on the top and the bottom, and it should turn out nice and neat. The plackets are stacked up on top of each other here, all the little folds, it's all like that. And if you turn it this way, you'll see that triangle from the beginning. So all we need to sew now is from here to there, and that'll close the end of the placket. I'm going to go right on top of that stay stitching that I have right there. And then I'm going to head to the serger and finish this edge here. And there we have the bottom of the placket closed very neatly. Love how that turned out. I'm going to finish serging that. And then I have access to do my buttonholes right here. 1, 2, 3. At this point, I feel like I'm done because this is what actually takes the longest to do and it's completely finished. All I now have to do is do my side seams, set in my sleeves and do the hem, and that's it. Well, the buttonholes and the buttons, but this is done and the rest is super relaxing.
Check it out. I love how it turned out. I love this tone of rib knit. I actually bought a few colorways from this fabric when I found it. I have it in red, navy, blue. I have a burgundy. I have a lighter red. I have white. I just like it. It's easy to work with. It's stretchy, but it recovers well. And it actually matched the same tone of blue with the linen placket here. I used leftover little bits that I had from making the Zubiri trousers from Each to Stitch. This was a pattern that was released a few weeks ago that I showed here on the channel. Beautiful blue fabric, no side seam pants. If you've missed out on that one, you should see it. It's a cool pattern. But I knew I had a little bit left over, so it was very easy for me to think about the linen collar and all of that, knowing I had the perfect fabric to go with this rib knit. This is my binding on the inside. I think it's very nice. It's very discreet. Love that. My husband's old shirts serve me for this purpose so well. Decided to go with these golden buttons made out of metal. I think they look very nice. You know, I did do the buttonhole and everything, but I will never wear it buttoned up. I just find, yeah, it's just not my thing. I'm wearing it like this with the 2 buttons up. I feel comfortable. I'm not showing anything. Comfy sleeve, easy to set in. I set it in on the round with a little hem band right here. Very nice. Bust studs there are very discreet. Little slits here on the side. You did see me do a lot of machine sewing with this one. Look at these shoulder seams. They're pressed open. I have the stable back shoulder, which makes the whole seam stable. It's not going to stretch out. This is how the placket looks like on the inside. Very neat. I did remove like 1/4 inch of interfacing that was around the edges that you would have been able to see. My interfacing was shockingly contrasting white. So it was very apparent. I would not have been happy to have that there. But it's just as easy as pulling it out. It's fusible, but I mean, it's not super glue. It's not going to stay there forever and ever. It's inevitable that you're going to have a bit of interfacing with these plackets. And I would rather have that stable area, you know, that's not going to stretch out than do all of this technique without interfacing because of fear of seeing some interfacing. You can remove it. So I have 0 interfacing visible and that binding, so nice. I mean, yeah, it's very nice. Love how this turned out. Check out this bust out right here. So nice. The fit, amazing. Let's see this one styled a bunch of ways.
Check out my Aiken Polo Shirt from Each to Stitch. It's a beautiful blue color. I used a rib knit combined with linen for the collar and the placket. I have blended sizes from 8 at the bust to 10 at the waist to 12 at the hips here. Full bust option. I did add 1 1/4 inches to the length. I'm a little bit taller and I did that above the waist notches. Here you can see it's beautifully shaped. It's not boxy at all. This is the area where I wanted it to hit at my waist. That's why I added length. Little slits, little detail on the side. Really easy to sew. below. And check out this rib knit. The texture is amazing and I love the color. Here is my linen placket. You can use a woven. On the inside, it's finished extremely neatly with a bit of bias tape I made myself from my husband's old shirt. Very nice. I got those two colors perfectly to combine. Short sleeve option with a hemband. You can do a long sleeve or you can make it sleeveless. And on the side is my basta that I lowered by 1 inch. I have the full bust version. That's why I have a basta. Otherwise, there isn't one. I would usually wear it with the top button undone. You can do it, it's not going to be uncomfortable, but it's a look that's a little bit too formal for me. Nice still, but I would 100% wear it unbuttoned. You can see the little bit of bias tape as well. I think it's really cute. Very nice, well-fitting collar. Very fun construction. Love it with these shorts. Different tones of blue here. Perfect. I've actually worn this outfit out in real life. Check out little helmet me with my Aiken shirt. I'm pedaling to go somewhere close by. There's an errand I have to do that I can't get away from. I live my life on a bike. Check out the nice little shirt. Just perfect. Check out the bubble skirt here. This goes beautiful with the polo shirt. I've tucked it in a little bit there on the front just because of the volume of the skirt. Sporty look with sneakers. The colors go perfectly. I think the styles go really well together. It's a really fun outfit that I'm going to enjoy wearing when it's hot. Don't let the sun fool you because it's not that hot right now. Here it is with some wider leg trousers with a pleat. You can see how frumpy-ish it looks if I don't tuck it in. It looks way better tucked in, at least at the front. In my opinion, the balance is much better here. This is an elevated type of t-shirt. Looks good with a lot of things, but I really like this outfit. The beige is going to go with any colorful shirt. Now we have a monochromatic moment. These are the Subiri trousers from Each to Stitch that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. The leftover from these pants were what I used for the collar and the placket. So they are basically the same tone of blue, and these are pretty fitted pants at the waist, so I think it's okay to have my shirt tucked out. I could also tuck it in. As soon as I picked my fabrics, I could just envision this blue moment and I'm so happy. This is a cute skirt from Each to Stitch called Irazu that I made last winter. It's got a fitted yoke shaped in the front and the back with some gathers under there. A little bit more voluminous. This would actually look pretty bad if I didn't tuck it in, so I have tucked it in so you can see the details of the skirt and how well this shirt can be used in and out. I love this look. It's still casual but a little bit more put together. Check it out. This is why I wouldn't want to leave it out. The length of it would fall right where the gathers are below the yoke of the skirt, and so it's just voluminous everywhere and I don't think it's the best way to wear it. The skirt is super comfortable, it's not super tight, and there's enough room to put in my shirt under there without feeling uncomfortable. I love this. I hope you enjoyed seeing this little number. I loved sewing it. I'm always super honest that this is not something that took me a couple of hours to make. It took me several couple of hours to make just because I'm filming, of course, and because of all the detail that I'm doing and the hand basting and the hand sewing. I wanted this clean. It's something I wanted. If not, I would just have edge stitching here, which is perfectly fine. I've done plackets with top stitching before. But because I felt this was a special top, I was using linen, I don't know, I just wanted to go the extra mile. And I think doing the hand sewing makes a huge difference. Yeah, that is my top. Hope to check it out. Of course, it can be a dress, it can have long sleeves, it can be sleeveless, you know, lots of options for you to check out. That's all from me. I'll see you very soon here on this channel with a bunch of sewing. Bye.